I do have a question. If let's say you're not like top of the line, close to Ivy League for medical school, but still get into like a good medical school, I would say, right? What are the chances of you still doing or getting through medical school within a reasonable amount of years? Like obviously it's like a long time to get a job in the medical field, like could be 10 years maybe. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll just open by saying the nice part about medicine is we have, it's, I think, both obviously a problem and also an opportunity. There's just such an immense shortage of healthcare professionals more broadly across our country. And so what that means is it honestly does not matter where you go for medical school, right? Like, so long as you have shown and demonstrated that you're able to go through the medical training process, you're able to satisfactorily complete residency and be a good doctor. Any hospital will be more than happy to hire you, just given how much of a shortage we have, and certainly in relation to the high influx and demand of patients that our healthcare system is seeing. And so I'll just open by giving that broader context. I think in terms of kind of how to approach um this question of how long it would actually take. I think that likewise, there are so many medical schools in the country that there are opportunities for anyone from any school across the country or even the world to have a seat. I'm just thinking of my own classmates here at Stanford. We have people from such a broad area of schools. It's by no means solely people who went to Ivy League schools or even schools in that broader kind of ranking, right? Like we have people who have gone to state schools, to public schools, even to community colleges. And so given how broad my own first year medical school classes here at Stanford, that certainly gives, I think, good reason to think that all of the medical schools would be opening their doors to anyone. I would also add that when you're thinking about applying both to college and also to medical school, certainly the academics, the research, all of the more perhaps intellectual aspects are extremely important. But I think what's and I in part was trying to speak on this in the broader call. What's even more important is to show your passion, right? Like, why are you actually interested in medicine? Because over the long term, it's not the smartest doctors or the smartest physicians who are going to actually have the best outcomes, right? It's the people who are going to be the most emotionally mature, emotionally intelligent, able to mentally handle all of the hardship and pain and death and other issues in the hospital, who are actually viewed as highly respected and who have good outcomes. So really thinking about, are there opportunities in your own school or your own community to engage with others, to do service work, to show that you are just a kind, empathetic person, I think is orders of magnitude more important than acing everything. And I've seen in my own experience that the admissions process ends up actually more so selecting for those applicants than for people who just may have gotten all A's but aren't able to actually see a patient and express empathy.
Is there anything like specific I could do to make myself truly stand out and show that like I'm passionate for like pursuing medical?
Yeah, so I would say that I would think about this in basically two parts, right? One is as you're applying. My understanding is that all of you are in high school,
Yeah.
if that's right. So the first part is, how do you emphasize your interest in medicine and in human health during your college application? I think for that it's a bit broader, right? You don't have to have a sense of exactly what it is that you might want to do in medicine. You just have to perhaps give some insight into, here's why, generally speaking, I think that my liberal arts or my college education is going to be helpful as I eventually one day see patients. I think for that, as I was saying also on the broader call, having some level of research experience to show that you are actually interested in the scientific aspects of medicine, but having that paired with some broader activism, advocacy, service work to show that you have the human element of what it takes to succeed in medicine is extremely important. Once you, I think, enter the college phase, things become a bit more specific, only to the extent that you want to have a better sense of exactly how do you see yourself playing a role as a physician, right? So it's less about I'm generally interested in service and in health. It's more about here, like I'm interested in surgery and I want to use AI to improve how we operate on patients who might, have highly metastatic tumors in the brain, right? Like it just warrants one more, I think, layer of detail and specificity to sufficiently convince medical school admissions officers that you are actually set on this path, right? The biggest thing for medical school is to show that you are not going to leave halfway through, because it's very expensive to have a seat held for someone who then actually does not end up going through with it.
And then for my final question is, what would be more realistic? Let's say, I'm really interested in becoming like an anesthesiologist, right? As an example. Um, but how realistic would it be for, let's say, like a good student to get in there and pursue that compared to, let's say, go to finance for a couple of years instead? Like, which
Say
would be
that
the better path? You think so?
I would say that you should really answer that, and it might sound very trite, but based on which path you actually find more meaning and more purpose in, because both of these are not easy paths, right? As you heard
Yeah.
the other two panelists speak, they, in law school you have a large amount of reading, and certainly you're able to make immense impact in that space. In business, you have a high volume of work. You're always meeting with possible partners and clients, and there's also high opportunity for impact. So it's hard to ascertain a priori with no context which one is the strictly better path. I think you have to assess it on day to day, which path do you actually enjoy most. I actually was always very interested also in business and law, and I might end up doing business school as well. But I think I see myself every day truly loving this notion of using my hands, my voice, my stethoscope to actually diagnose and heal people in that half an hour or hour long encounter. I just get so much more meaning and purpose out of that. And the worst thing you want to do is be in a field where you are either bored, or worse yet, you hold some level of resentment, right? Because it's going to be extremely hard to have a sustainable path, especially if you want to one day be a leader in that space. It's all going to emerge out of just being deeply passionate. So I'd say if medicine is one of the multiple spaces that you are more broadly interested in, do some shadowing, do some emergency room volunteering. Just get to know the doctors in your local hospital. See if you like who they are as people, and if you like the general lifestyle and impact and way by which they achieve impact. See if those things kind of align with your other interests. I think we're almost out of time. I saw that Lori had her hand up, so I'll shift on to her quickly.
Hey, thank you, by the way.
Yeah,
Thank you
for
for your
sure.
time.
Yeah.
I just had a question because you mentioned that there's a lot of like rigorous content. So how do you manage your time? Like, have you built habits, or like if so, how?
It's a good question, and I definitely think that the sorts of students who are able to manage several things at once end up being very successful in medical school, because it's objectively a high amount of content, right? I have more than 8 final exams over the course of this month, right? And so I think just the sheer volume of information is worth acknowledging. Not that that should by any means scare any of you, because it's all manageable. It's not difficult content. It's just a high amount of it. If anything, I actually studied computer science back in college, and I think at face value the individual information that I learned while studying computer science was likely more complex at the surface level than I think the science of medicine, but the amount is just much more at medical school. So certainly being able to balance that is crucial. I think how I do it is I really try to make a game plan for this week. I have these 4 or 5 main goals that I must get done. Otherwise, it's going to make it that much harder come next week when I have to do double as much work, right? So being able to really spread things out over time, understanding what actually works for you. Some people are extremely effective when they, study with others, and others are actually much less effective. So I have found that for me, I will get much more work done if I'm being held accountable by other people. And so being able to either form group study sessions or, exchange notes, exchange concepts, and even whenever I work on research, right? I find it very helpful to actually set actionable goals and deadlines with my other peers to ensure that we make meaningful progress over time, right? There's this notion that the person who makes slow, incremental, but steady progress over a long amount of time actually gets exponentially more done than those who attempt to have these bursts of highly productive work, but those bursts only happen once every month, right? So that's not a very, I think, effective approach. What I would say is, certainly college is much more manageable than medical school is workload wise. So as you enter your first few years of college, experiment, see what actually works well, see what study approaches, what individual versus group study approaches seem to work best for different sorts of classes. Even among different classes, different approaches may be better. So yeah, I'd say use the 4 years of college to experiment, and then you'll have a much better sense as you start medical school of what is the effective approach. I saw one more hand up, not sure if they still wanted to ask, but certainly anyone else can ask a question as well.
I just wanted to say thank you for that answer.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and I'll just add, like, it's not an easy process. Even now, as a medical student, I'm constantly trying to figure out what works best. It's a constant, I think, work in progress, and more than having any specific approach or routine down, I think being someone who's willing to adapt, try, fail, experiment, I think that is a good skill to have. That will help you converge on the best approach for different classes, right? Because as I start my clinical rotations in my third year, I'll be learning far different types of information than now in more lecture-based classes. And I think a different approach might be warranted based on the year I'm in medical school, actually. So yeah, just don't be afraid to try and fail more broadly as well. Any other questions on medical school, on the life of a medical student, or other aspects that might be helpful?
Bob,
If
I just wanted to come on
Yeah.
and say that you may or may not know my sister, who's currently at Stanford Med School. Her name is Marzan.
Yeah, I do know her. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there. I really appreciate you coming, and I loved your feedback and advice.
That's awesome. She actually served as a TA for a quality improvement class I was in, and she actually, I think, also is one of our clinical skills TAs as well. So she's been an excellent source of help.
Yeah, she loves teaching. I
Yeah.
think she'll pursue it down the line, hopefully.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Are you in high school or college now, or which?
Oh, I'm in fourth year university. I'm here basically working part-time to help the kids with Salman and the team. But yeah, no, my sister is 1 year older than me.
Awesome.
Yeah, she loves Stanford.
That's awesome. Well, if I have an extra minute and there aren't any questions, I can just share a bit more broader, I think, maybe advice on how I was approaching things back. Okay, yeah, no, I see that there's a question, so feel free to ask.
Hi. Oh, I have 8 seconds. But
Okay.
what's one of the big takeaways that you got from like school?
I will answer in the other group.
Okay.
Point out is I'm 99% certain that none of our guests, Josh, Bahv, or Alex, mentioned that, the way to determine whether or not their career paths are right are by watching Grey's Anatomy, Suits, or Billions, or I'm not sure what like the NBA equivalent of a TV show would be. Maybe Wolf of Wall Street as a movie. So I want to once again thank Josh, Alex, and Bob for taking the time out of their busy schedules to come chat with all of us, share their insights. I do have one final round of questions for all three of you guys. I'm just going to spotlight you all, and then I'll ask away. But the first question that I have for the three of you is, what are the best resources available to learn on your own time, whether it's books, podcasts, articles, things along those lines. And they don't have to be industry specific. I would love to just kind of hear from you. It's like we see you as like three academics, right? You guys pursued higher education. You guys love learning. That should be a core to the three of you all. So what are the best things that you guys love to spend your time learning from? Oh, and sorry, let's start with Alex, Bahv, and then Josh.